Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with John Conenna. Today, we're thrilled to have on a lady that is becoming that rising star, in my opinion. It's
wow.
Jewell Hillery from WGN here in Chicago, reporter, anchor, you name it, she does it. And Jewell has done an amazing job here since coming to GN, and we're going to talk about her career, how it got started, and what she was doing before that. But before we start, what's going on, young lady?
Well, happy to be here with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for the invitation and those kind words. That's really, really kind of you to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, just enjoying this lovely weather. Finally, I feel like winter was like a whole year.
Right,
So
Jewell?
just happy to have some sunshine,
Yeah.
some more weather.
Jewell, it looks like we go from winter, I don't know, maybe the last 10 years, I always say 10 or 5 years, but it looks like we're going from winter to summer all the time. So we'll just blame it on Tom Skilling.
Such a nice guy. I don't want to blame it on him, but
yeah, we won't blame it on Tom. Thank God for Tom. Sometimes at least he gets it accurate about 95% of the time. Question for you: you're a product of Chicago. I think you went to school here at Von Steuben, correct?
I did.
So when you were this young girl growing up, is this something you thought, wow, I'd like to take a shot at it? Journalism in general, or just, doing the news or being on television? Yeah, my dad had a word. He said, if you have that presence, you take a shot at it, and you do have that presence. So how does that start for you?
Goes back to fifth grade, really. May have been before fifth grade, but fifth grade is when, and I went to Newberry Mathematics and Science Academy in Lincoln Park. And I would always wake up in the morning, and before I would get on the school bus, I would turn the news on. And I must admit that growing up, NBC5 was my station. But I just always remember turning on the news and being like, oh, I would love to do that one day, And at that point, I was like, oh, the anchors are so pretty, and it just, looked really glamorous. And my parents, they were also journalism majors on the print side. I think it was the Daily News, I want to say,
The newspaper, yes.
Actually, yeah, they worked there back in the 70s. And so it's just kind of in me, I suppose, the journalism bug and the writing, but I wanted to do television. And so long story short, when I was in elementary school, going through high school, I knew that becoming a reporter is what I wanted to do. I think in my senior yearbook, I wrote, in 10 years, you'll see me on some, newscasting somewhere. I can't remember the exact words, but
right. But like that quiet confidence that you knew you could do this. Exactly. I gotta go back to your channel 5 answer. Was there somebody on that channel 5 that you kind of says, I want to be like her or be like him?
Oh gosh, I can't remember her name at the moment. I can see her face, but I've always Carol Maureen for sure. I've always enjoyed Marion Brooks.
Marion, yes.
Yeah, who is still there.
Well, I got to tell you, I did a little schooling with someone I think that is a friend of yours in this respects. She was on Channel 7, and I thought she was one of the best. Was Diane Burns.
Oh yeah.
Diane Absolutely. Was something in those years when she came here to Chicago. So that's something that I'm glad you brought that up, that who you wanted to aspire to. But when you were in high school, was it more or less you did the journalism, and were you more like this investigative person?
No, not quite. I've always enjoyed writing, always been a fairly good writer. So I mean, I really didn't do too much journalism in high school. I just knew again, at that point, I was just looking at it from like, oh, that looks fun. They're pretty. And then when I got into college and actually started studying, I was like, oh, yeah, this is a whole lot more than just being on the camera. But this is really a career where you can change people's lives. You can make a difference in people's lives. You can be the voice of people that don't necessarily have the opportunity to get their voices out to the masses. And so that's when it appealed to me on a deeper level, was in college, when I was like, okay, I can make a difference doing this.
you saw that, yeah, because somebody wants now to be aspired to what you're doing. They want to take that role. They want to take that chance. That is a great line that you, not a line. I'm glad you brought that. That's a great point that you made from there. So you go to a great school. It was Champaign-Urbana, where
Yes.
you graduated for your bachelor's, and then you went on to do your master's where?
Also, at U of I, but the Springfield campus, so
I
just a
got you.
little further south, I guess. Yeah, yeah, Springfield.
And then it,
That's further south.
exactly. Um, from there, did you do any things in college, like even at the campus as a journalist, or where you were, maybe asked to do some kind of work in journalism, or even doing, did they have a station there at Urbana?
Yes, what was it? UI 7.
Okay.
I'm just
Smaller
laughing.
scale of what you're doing now.
Yes, towards I think it was our senior year, we had to like do a newscast every week, which oh boy, let's just say pulling out those tapes are quite laughable. Right now, looking back, we did TV, we did radio. I feel like I sounded like Mickey Mouse when I
Right.
first
Okay.
started. My voice was really squeaky. Um, but yeah, so we would do stories for the newscast for like a grade. But I also worked at there was a show at the local station. It was like a gardening show.
Uh-huh.
And so I learned how to operate the cameras. I learned how to do some of the like production, the I think it's character generators, like when you see the names pop up on the screen. So I got some behind the scenes experience and have an even better appreciation for the people who do those things that you don't see. Who
Right.
I couldn't do what I'm doing if it weren't for those people.
If it was for those people, and again, a funny point you brought up, because I've dealt with talking to a lot of newscasters, journalists like yourself, and I really thought, Jewel, it was like this: you get all dressed up real nice, and it's 5 minutes to 10, and you're going to go on to Channel 9. You're going to walk in the studio 5 minutes, just read the script, and go. I didn't know you guys were staying there 12-hour days.
Oh yeah, yeah. People always ask, "Well, what are you doing when you're not on TV?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm working. I'm making phone calls. I'm writing. I'm who knows? There's never a dull moment when it comes to the news gathering process. But
And
yeah,
and Jewel, this could, like, right? I mean, let's say this was a day that you weren't, I wasn't interviewing, and you were working, and you had maybe this
oh
30-minute span. This could change on you within 5 minutes, where you got to tell me, "Hey, John, time to fly. I got to get out of here." Correct?
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't even do
Yeah,
that to
wouldn't even
you.
attempt it. Right, right.
Yeah, for
I can
sure.
imagine. Sure, sure.
Hmm.
So when you get out of the college situation, is the first job in Rockford?
My first TV job was in Rockford. So when I got out of grad school, I actually worked for the state of Illinois for about 9 months with the comptroller's office as a policy analyst. Um, I was had a death in my family. My father had passed away, and so just kind of needed to regroup and
Yeah.
be at home. Um, and since I had been in Springfield, I became very familiar with how things run politically, and just yeah, learned all about the different state agencies. And so I got a job with the state comptroller's office. It was Dan Hines at the time. And so I'm grateful for that experience, but I knew that I was like, oh gosh, I still, my heart for journalism.
This wasn't it. This just
Yeah.
wasn't it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I knew I didn't want to, be in an office all day and sit behind a desk. And no offense to those who do,
Yeah.
everyone has their thing. I just knew it wasn't for me. And so I started putting my reels together, and I went to NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists. Their conference
Very
that
nice.
following year was in Chicago, actually. And
Sure.
so I ran into a guy named Kent Harrell, who was the news director at WTVO in Rockford. And yeah, from there, it was, I think a few months later, I ended up getting the job in Rockford. So that was
And
my
you were
first job.
anchoring, you were anchoring and still doing, let's say, again, on the smaller scale, anchoring and doing investigative news stuff out of that city.
In Rockford, yeah, I did have an opportunity to anchor. I was mostly general assignment reporting, and I did consumer reports too while I was there.
Very nice. No, very nice. And how long were you there in Rockford?
Just under 2 years.
2 years, yeah. And then
Mhm.
the you make the move, I noticed, for to Jackson,
Mhm.
Mississippi, correct? And
Yes.
was that something that you were looking for, or they came calling to you?
No, I knew my contract in Rockford was up, and so um I remember actually, I think it was Labor Day weekend, 2009, 2010. And I had a trip planned, but I was like, no, I really need to be sending out my tapes and sending out resumes because I've got like 2 months left of my contract and I need to go somewhere else. And yeah, um, WLBT in Jackson, Mississippi, the NBC station, one of the folks that I reached out to, and Dennis Smith got back to me and said they were interested in, flying me out. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get flown to Jackson,
Very-
Mississippi. Yeah, for my interview. And so I went there and yeah, they hired me when I on the
And
spot.
this is now was considered what, the Raycom media?
Yes, well, they're not Raycom anymore, but I believe at the time they
Yeah.
were Raycom. Hmm.
And now I notice with that, just and going doing the research on you, that you really start to develop a lot of responsibilities, correct? Where
Yes.
you were investigating, reporting, doing the news, anchoring. So you really have to be, what's the word? You have to be really versatile in this industry, because I just noticed, like even 2 weeks ago with you on 9, I think it was Memorial Day, just before we had talked. You were on from like 4 o'clock on that day, where there was no
Mm-hmm.
break in between. So is this told you right from the onset? Okay, hey, these are going to be your responsibilities, or do they just throw you into the fire?
A bit of both,
Right.
but grateful for it. Yeah, when I was in Rockford, or not Rockford, when I was in Jackson, I was the morning live shot reporter for 6 years. So I had the joy of waking up at two, I don't know, I can't even remember anymore, 3 o'clock in the morning, something
Yeah.
like that. I had to be at
Whatever
work.
it is, it's that hour. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to be at work at 4 a.m. Um, and yeah, you just moving quickly, quickly, quickly all the time. And then I started to anchor a show called Midday Mississippi. And then I started like filling in on, not filling in, but doing the weekend morning show as well. So it's all, progression. And, in terms of when you said, do they tell you you're going to do all that? Well, not necessarily up front as a reporter, but once you prove yourself, that you're capable and able, um, it's an honor to take on more
Oh,
responsibility.
sure.
Mhm.
I have to ask you, because I mean, I've talked to some the colleagues. How is that? How was that market? I mean, did that market prepare you for WGN Chicago, Illinois?
Yeah,
Where now you're coming to the hotbed. Does it prepare you?
absolutely. So I was actually talking to one of my old coworkers yesterday, and people think, oh, Jackson, Mississippi, the South, and I probably thought that too when I, first
Right.
went down there, coming from Chicago. But when I tell you that Jackson, Mississippi has news in terms of, unfortunately, a lot of the crime and the things that we cover here in Chicago, but some big federal cases, through the federal court systems, as well as the county courts, city council, the county. It
So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, it was never a dull moment. And so there are often times when I'm on a story here and I'm like, okay, I got this because I did this there. I have to remind myself, okay, obviously the audience is much bigger, but putting the story together is the same. And yes, without a doubt, Jackson, Mississippi prepared me to be able to cover news in
But I mean,
Chicago.
in the back of your mind, you're always now looking for this progression, meaning like if it was Channel 9, Channel 2, Channel 5, Channel 7, you're still, Jewell Hillery is still wants to make this the goal kept continuing for her with this, correct?
Absolutely.
And when you were in Jackson, it was the main station there that I think was WAP.
WAPT channel 16. Mm-hmm.
Is that their main? Is that the main one there?
Honestly, right now I don't know. I know WLBT was the when I was there. WLBT was the what do they call it? The like the station that pretty much everyone
Would watch, right? Correct.
yeah. Mm-hmm. But
And
WAPT
Jewell,
was
how were
right.
the hours working at a station like that? How were the hours there? I mean, did you have a set schedule, or was it? I mean, this wasn't like no 8 to 4. Again, you had to be ready and willing to get all, whatever you had to do. Correct.
Yep, 4 a.m. was my time. Well, so WLBC, I was the morning show reporter for 6 years. So 4 a.m. to I'd usually be there until 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And then when I was with WAPT, I was actually freelancing. So I was kind of on call. I did a lot of weekends and holidays and a lot of morning shifts as well. So, you know,
Right.
kind
So
of.
how does Jewell Hillery get to Chicago, WGN? And I'm not just saying this. I know you said something about 5 here in the beginning, but 9 has been my go-to since I was this kid, from the days of, maybe you've heard this in your newsroom, since the days of a Jack Taylor to now, or even a Robert Jordan, who I interviewed, a class act gentleman. How does WGN come calling? Is it calling Jewell Hillery, or is Jewell Hillery now getting some kind of a confirmation that, hey, WGN is interested in this lady? How does it work?
So, just going back a little. So when I was freelancing after I left WLBT in Jackson after 6 years, I took a break for a year, and I started working with an urban Christian school called the Redeemer School, and I was the director of development and marketing. And so I did that full time, but the journalism bug is always still there. So that's how I started freelancing with WAPT. So I would work at the school full time, but then on holidays and weekends, I would be at the TV station. And I don't know, was maybe around the pandemic, started pandemic, maybe a year before the pandemic. I was regularly sending out resumes and my reels, and nothing was, I wasn't getting any big responses back. And then finally, Memphis reached out to me, and they wanted to offer me a job. I can't remember what station it was in Memphis, but this may have been, I think, March of like 2021. And something in me just said, I can't do it. Like, I just knew it was not the
you didn't have it in your gut. It wasn't that gut feel.
Nope, I did not. It was not in my spirit to say yes, even though I really wanted to, because I was like, I really want to get back in full time. And so I was coming home to Chicago for a few weeks, and I said, okay, I'm going to reconnect with people that I interned with back in high school, or not high school, back in college, and just, really try to get my foot in the door somewhere.
Right.
And so Ben Bradley, my coworker at WGN, I interned with him at ABC7 when I was in college. Wow. And so Ben, he says he remembered who I was. I think he did. But it had
I'm
been
sure he did. Come on.
I hadn't connected with him in a while. And so we, talked on the phone, and I said, hey, do you mind if I just stop by the station and, just come and say hello, and, come by and say hello. And he said, sure. And so I went up to the station, and he gave me a tour, introduced me to the news director, the assistant news director, other folks in the newsroom, and, just kind of sat me down and said, what is it that you really want to do? And I was like, well, just to get back in the door here, I'd love to be a reporter. I'd love to freelance. I'm open. I'm open. And so I want to say it was that day that an opening, like a freelance job, became available on the website. And so I worked on my tape, just spruced it up some, edited it, sent it to Ben, and applied for the job. And literally like 30 minutes later, the news director got a hold of me.
Wow.
and said, "Hey, would you like to interview?" I was like, "Yes, absolutely.
And we're
I would love
talking
to
30,
interview."
and we're talking 30 minutes later, Jewel.
Yeah, so this is not the same day that I went up there, but like a few
No.
days after I'd been there and I had spruced up my reel some, like within 30 minutes of sending it to Ben. Yeah, the news director. Maybe it was an hour, but it was a very short amount of time.
Wow.
Yeah, and we set up a phone interview or a Zoom interview, I should say. And I can just tell you, like at that point, even if I didn't get the job, I was just like, oh, I could put this on my resume that
Right.
I've been interviewed by WGN in Chicago. And yeah, long story short, did 2 interviews. And when I got back to Jackson, shortly after, the news director called me and said, "Hey, do you want to, take the freelance job?" And I absolutely said yes. So
I can imagine. Wow.
yeah.
And the way you said it, that, hey, I'll put this on my resume. Yeah. Because it was a good experience. But again, how I opened this up today about your presence, that first impression is something that they saw, I think, because here they don't know you, except maybe knowing
Mhm.
from the news stations. Question for you, because it was interesting to read this about you. Are you still involved with that Redeemer School?
Not as an
Are you on a
employee.
board or something? I read, or maybe
Um,
I
not no.
no, okay.
I was involved in a ton of stuff when I was in Jackson, but no, I mean I still have friends, people that are like family to me at the school, but in terms of any official capacity, no.
Yeah. And again, who would have, I mean, here you're working for a big station like WGN. I don't think, there's, I know there's not, what I want to, you say the word, there's not 48 hours in a day to make things happen, but so I got to ask you, because I've seen you, this well-rounded reporter that you are being, I mean, you've anchored, you're on the street investigating, you're doing so many different things. Is there one forte that brings Jewell Hillery, like eventually Jewell Hillery wants to do this, or do you like being this well-rounded reporter, which you are? What's your forte? What do you think is your thing?
Yeah, I've learned how to do general assignment because that's the majority of what I've done the last, I don't know, almost 15 years or so. But I really have a passion for um, digging a little deeper. And not necessarily like full out investigative stuff, but stories that make people smile, honestly,
Nice. Nice.
but that are meaningful to people. I love medical news. I would love to, perhaps dive into that one day if the opportunity presents itself. I'm really big into wellness and fitness. And so, yeah, that type of reporting is very interesting to me. I like lifestyle reporting. Um, there's so much going on in Chicago that I don't think we get to see enough of because of, unfortunately, the negative things that are happening. But I
Right.
would like to do more of the positive, more of the positive stuff when I can.
I'm going to feed off that what you just said, because we've been through a lot here in Chicago. Let's say from about 19, since we'll just say from the beginnings of COVID to now. Do you see, and this is a question, an open question to you, do you see the city making the rebound now? Possibly with the new mayor Johnson. Do you see this city going in the right direction? Can we turn it where, people maybe are, I mean, things are happening in Schaumburg, Illinois. Things are happening in Elgin. Things are happening that we don't hear. We hear about Chicago, maybe in its negativity, but do you see it rebounding, Jewel?
In a positive way, you
In a
mean?
positive way, yes.
I can only say I hope so.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked that
Yeah,
question,
I
you're
hope
out
so.
there, you're seeing things, but I felt really I started to see it, but I really would like to hear it from you.
Hmm. Yeah, things have changed a lot, and I hope so. I hope that, I mean, it can't just be Mayor Johnson. He's one person,
Right.
obviously. Um, like we say, it takes everybody, you know, it's going to take resources,
Sure.
like resources financially, people's time and energy. So I hope so. I hope that it can rebound. I really don't
Yeah,
know.
we can always say, you know, there's so many when you get in groups of people, let's do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, but are we really doing it? You know, like you said,
Mhm.
we just can't send it. Johnson replaces Lightfoot now, and all of a sudden he's going to turn on a switch. That
Yeah,
is not going to happen, you know,
yeah,
overnight. Exactly.
yeah, and
How
it
intimidating
yeah.
was Chicago for you coming from Mississippi when now you're that first day WGN, you walk into that studio and you get those first assignments. What was going through Jewell Hillary's mind?
Um, yeah, remember my first day. I was, naturally nervous, but nothing where I said, okay, I can't do this. I just, it's like I've been working for this my whole life. So here it is.
Right.
Here's time to shine. And yeah, and then I have a friend who so my friend Nate Rogers, he works at Fox 32. We
Okay.
went to high school together. We were in the same class. And so he'd started in Chicago maybe a year before me. So we talked before I got here, and he just kind of helped me realize, like, yeah, obviously it's Chicago, it's a much bigger city, but he's like, at the end of the day, you tell the story the same, you know.
Right.
Um, you present your news in front of the camera, so I try not to think about, oh my gosh, there's 3 million people, you
Yeah,
know.
right. Exactly. Yeah. And don't be, I mean, it's intimidating. We have to work with it. It's intimidating enough, but don't be, but I mean, like your colleagues, would you have to say just in general, has it been a good feel for you in the sense of help? They've been helpful and, you know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah,
WGN, honestly, I would say has been, in terms of like, yeah, just station overall, probably the best. Everyone has been very kind. I was welcomed with open arms. There's a lot of newsrooms that are toxic and people just don't want to be there, but I
right.
don't get that sense at WGN. Yeah, so I'm grateful that it's a healthy newsroom. And
Yes.
yes, I have had great rapport with people.
And I got to tell you, Jewel, watching GN, and I've been watching it my whole life, not that I don't watch the other ones, but I just feel that GN has got this calming effect. And there's not a lot of sensationalism, I think. Maybe it's how you guys open it up and how you end it and being on the way you guys are. But it's just a real, I feel like all the reporters have that same rapport. Am I often saying that? There's like a structure to you guys.
When you ask that question, I'm trying to.
It's well that what I'm saying is it seems like everyone is on the same page. There's a structure where when I would watch other channels, it seems like there was always that individualistic reporter that maybe he's trying to get ahead because of his
Oh,
name or something else. That's
I
where I'm
gotcha.
going with
I
that.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I can't speak for everyone, but my experience is that people are very humble.
Yes.
And, like, oh my gosh, Tom Skilling, this man is one of the kindest, most humble human beings, and that's the case for everybody,
Sure.
truly. Mike Lowe, oh my gosh, this man is a phenomenal writer, journalist, and he was he's the one who trained me when I first started, and just so humble. I mean, he just like he's poetic when he writes, and just so humble. But yeah, everyone is really cool and
Sure.
just
And
goes
and
at it.
that's what makes for the good feel, yeah, that situation. But you know what? It's so evident with all of you. You know, like even the way like a Tom Skilling might say, "Hey, Jewel, you know, tomorrow we're going to have flurries here and everything else." But it's the way you guys come across. It's a warm feeling. Like sometimes my wife will say to me, "Well, I want to put on channel 7." Well, we're not. I want to watch 9. So you know, we'll have this inner argument. But no, well, listen, I know your time is valuable, and I really appreciate you coming on with this. And I have to tell you, I have a segment here at the end where I get off 5 questions to you. It's basically one-word answers. You could elaborate on them if you want, or you could tell me, John, please, enough with the questions. But there's 5, and they're pretty simple. But I would like to ask you these 5 questions. Jewel, a mentor or someone you aspired to be in your field? Who was it really? Who was that? Maybe that first mentor that helped, if it was mom, dad, or somebody that you saw. Who was that first one that you really says, okay, I want to do this. I want to be like them. Who would you mention?
Well, professionally, I would say Katie Couric. I
Okay.
always,
Good one.
yeah,
You chose a
yeah,
good one. Yeah.
yeah. When I used to watch the news in fifth
Sure.
grade
Sure.
when she was on the Today Show. Yeah, she'd be the professional one that I would say. Also, Cheryl Burton, Channel
Oh yeah.
5. I mean, Channel 7, ABC. So many, so many. Yeah, and I mean, my family has been all the way supportive.
Yeah, and what, like you said, what a background, especially them working for the Chicago Daily News, which was the rival of the great Chicago Tribune back in the day. Sure. All right, I got to ask you the second question. Who would you like to interview? And it can't, someone famous, and it can't be me. Um, who would you like to interview one day?
Mhm.
You know, that boy, I might get that chance one day.
Mhm. Go with Michelle Obama.
Okay, very nice. Very nice. Our first lady. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Mhm.
that's something. Yeah, and they're called. It could be that opportunity. You never know, right?
Yep,
And you could be in the same city where she's at, for sure, for sure.
absolutely.
Your all-time favorite movie that you could watch over 200 times
Oh goodness.
and not be bored with it.
Man, that's a good one. I don't know why. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I didn't expect that one from you. Wait a minute, Willy Wonka. I, I thought it would for sure be some love story.
No. It just reminds me of being a kid and
Yeah, okay. Good movie. All right, we're gonna go with Wonka then, right? It's gonna go viral. You know this is gonna go viral, yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm a big R&B guy. Back in the day when it was called discos, I used to love to dance. So doing the little news on you, I heard you like Latin style dancing and you like to do a lot of Chicago stepping.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this. What is a couple of R&B songs that you like to dance to since you're so good and bad on the dance floor?
Gosh, I don't know names of songs, but
A band or something, or
oh goodness. Yeah, just because you're asking me off the top of my head. Earth, Wind and
oh, for
Fire.
sure.
Um, um,
The best.
Isley Brothers, Isley, yeah.
Yeah.
Old school.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay, good. Old school. Like it. Because I'm
yeah.
this old Barry White guy. So that works. That works. Those are great. Yeah. And then kind of twofold, because if you don't answer the one, then I got to get a backup for you. So I'll give you one. If you can answer that one, that'll be it. You got to be honest with me. Cubs or Sox?
Socks.
All right. I knew we had something down. we don't have to show that, but yeah. So you're definitely White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
Do you follow either one of them?
Not regularly, no. But my dad, he was a huge Sox fan. So just a little backstory.
Yeah.
When my dad was a kid, my grandfather put a Sox hat on him and a Cubs hat on his brother. And so that's how that happened. And so even though I grew up on the north side, because my father was a huge Sox fan, I go with the Sox.
Yeah.
But if it comes to Chicago, obviously when the Cubs are going, yeah, I'm gonna go.
We got to keep it. I grew up on the north side, but became a south side guy because I was sick of waiting. So now I'm waiting again. But I'm going to throw in that sixth question. It's an easy one. You got a favorite style Chicago pizza that you'll go to? Are you a big pizza lover or not?
I like pizza. I eat it, but I'm not like a big deep dish person.
Yeah.
I do. I enjoy it, but I
Got it.
don't necessarily have a favorite or anything. But I do love Portillo's.
Okay.
With a good Italian beef, Chicago hot dog.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Jewel, I have to tell you, I really appreciate you coming on here today, taking out some time out of here on your day off. Great stuff. What a career you've had. And I got to tell you, keep it going, young lady. Jewell Hillery, you're doing a great job. And I just have this funny feeling that somewhere down the road, you're going to be that person we're going to see as the anchor, not on the fill-in basis, but I have this feeling because of your presence and that first impression you're showing me, you're going to be that main anchor one day. Young lady, continued success. And I hope we could do another one of these somewhere down the road. This was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was great. All right, everyone. Thank you again, and we'll get this out soon so we can all see how Jewell Hillery is doing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, John.